Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 933. You can listen to this show wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast networks across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch the show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. And if you do, you will see, hear, smell, maybe touch if you have some sort of advanced technology. Our faces. He is Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa of Blog and the Boys. BLG. It's basketball season.
No, it's not. I'm definitely not watching the Philadelphia 76ers for at least a little bit.
Philadelphia 76ers is a lot of syllables to say. Philadelphia 76ers. That's 10 syllables to say out loud.
Yeah,
That's
I usually just
exhausting.
say Sixers, but
Yeah.
if I think I don't think I would say Philadelphia Sixers. That doesn't sound right to me. It's either Philadelphia 76ers or the Sixers.
Philly 76ers? I feel like I
No.
don't hear that a lot. Philly
Or
Sixers
just
even sounds
76ers
kind of...
doesn't sound right either.
Yeah. I feel like nobody refers to them as Philly. Like, I feel like the Eagles and Phillies get referred to as Philly a lot. But the Sixers, you know what I mean? Like, teams who are playing, they'll be like, oh, we're playing Philly this week. You know what I mean? But, like, I don't think nobody does that with, or anybody does that with the Sixers.
The Sixers very stupidly have Phila on their jerseys, which we may have talked about before, which is dumb because that's not a real thing anywhere. Like, no one, like, it's either Philly or it could be PHL, like the airport code. But Phila, that's not a real thing.
Fila was a brand, right? But it was with an F, not the PH. So, tough scene for me. We're recording on Tuesday, October 24th. It is 11:15 Central Standard Time. My Houston Astros did it again, dude. What a horrible way to go out. What an embarrassing way to go out.
You won the World Series last year. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, all told, I'm fine. It's a bummer to lose. I'm in this really weird place, though, and I wanted to start the show off with this. And this is going to be weird because when people listen on Wednesday, the Phillies either will or won't be in the World Series.
Their first Game 7 ever, RJ. And
that's weird.
For a franchise that's been around, well, it's not weird in that it's not surprising in that they've been bad, which is why there's not really been a Game 7. But for a franchise that's existed since 1883, like, think about that year. 140 years, there hasn't been a Game 7 until now.
So I sort of sarcastically tweeted when the Astros were getting destroyed on Monday night, which was, man, I was so bummed. I couldn't even enjoy Kirk Cousins' like, shining moment in primetime against the 49ers because I was devoting attention to the Astros. So I was like double pissed. But anyway, I sort of somewhat tongue-in-cheek tweeted to, go D-backs, snake emoji. Now, I don't hate the Phillies the way that I hate the Eagles. I consider them somewhat cousins. But like the Phillies really, as an Astros fan, I have no ill will towards them. And so if I have any ill will towards anyone, it's towards the Rangers. But, I've got to eat my crow right now. And it's awkward for me because of the team that I cover professionally. So I don't mean to say that the Rangers are to the Astros in my viewpoint, the way that the Eagles are to the Cowboys, but that's probably the closest I can come to this. So if the Phillies won the World Series, I don't think I would be upset. I would be bothered at how it would make Eagles fans happy and the Eagles players happy, I guess. But I think my preferred order of finishing at this point is D-backs, so I don't have to deal with any of these emotions. Phillies, Astros. Plus, I am a believer, I've said this before, that like all-time elite great players deserve rings and deserve titles, and so Bryce Harper certainly falls in that category. Bryce Harper, Dallas Cowboys fan.
I've seen growing up over the years, this is very anecdotal, but I feel like I saw a surprising amount of Phillies Cowboys fan crossover, which I can't really explain other than, I mean, they have the same star in the logo there, kind of very tiny, but
the Phillies love them, the Cowboys so much they have two of them. I mean,
so I don't know what that's about. Maybe that's just me overreacting to a couple people I saw growing up, but I feel like I saw that more than once, and it was such a weird, strange dynamic to me. But
our buddy KMS from the Birds and Boys podcast is a Phillies Cowboys fan. Yeah, so
well, I mean, sometimes there are Cowboys fans who, they're fans of every Philly team except the Eagles because the Eagles were like really bad and disgraceful, or like not disgraceful, but like really like a joke growing up to where. Or like they do that thing where, their parents were big Eagles fans, so they want to root for the other team, but they'll still root for like they don't care about the other. They probably care about football the most, so they'll root for the opposite of the Eagles. But then they'll also like passively root for the other Philadelphia sports teams.
Well, whatever the case, and this will be interesting, I think, for people to listen to on Wednesday. What are your emotions going into Wednesday night into Game 7?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a great sense for this one. I'm betting on the Diamondbacks money line for the emotional hedge of it all. I don't
It's
think
a
the
coward
Diamondbacks
move.
are. I don't think they're that good, honestly. That doesn't mean they can't beat the Phillies. They obviously got them to a Game 7. I think the Phillies, the Diamondbacks clearly beat the Phillies in Game 6. The other two games, I think the Phillies kind of just like gave away or beat themselves more so. But that's their fault. The Phillies put themselves in the spot where the Diamondbacks can take the series. But like, there's no one on that team like that you even like really hate, like, you know, differently from like the Braves, or like there's not like this hateable player that's like a rival and they're great. It's just kind of a weird team.
They're
So
fun. They have fun vibes, fun energy. The
I
pool
don't agree.
stuff is cool.
I don't think so. I mean, I will say the rookie who's pitching tonight, Game 7, that guy is awesome. I don't know how you say his last name because it's. Do you know how to say it? It's
No,
Brandon.
give it
It's
a
like
try.
Phaadt. Yeah, I forget how to say that, but that guy was like, he looked awesome, and it was crazy that the D-backs took him out. They ended up winning the game anyway, but it's crazy they took him out of that game when he was pitching earlier because he was like just freaking lighting this lineup up. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't doubt this team. I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, it's really disruptive. Okay, I muted that.
Well, that
Yeah,
that concludes baseball talk. But I do want to say, because we have a lot of Rangers fans who listen, congratulations. I'm happy this is over one way or the other. It's embarrassing, but the Astros' run of success over the last 7 years makes it a lot easier to tolerate and to swallow. So congratulations to my Rangers fan friends and followers. I hope you all enjoy. That's about the nicest thing I can say at this point in time. But yeah, Wemby season starts on Wednesday.
well,
And
for
of
the sake
course,
of content, it is disappointing we didn't get another Phillies Astros World Series for
although
our sake.
you have, or at least had, right before we started recording, and we've kind of danced around this, the World Series schedule, right? Do you still have that in front of you? I don't know if you closed that tab.
I closed the
Um,
tab.
I'll do this. Let's see. So next week, and this kind of leads us into, I wouldn't say an announcement, but so Game 6, if the World Series were to go that far, is next Friday, November the
Yeah.
3rd. And Game 7, if it were to truly go that far, would be on Saturday, November the
Mhm.
4th. And then the Eagles, and these games would be in Arlington, by the way. But the Eagles would host, or will host, excuse me, that's a fact, the Cowboys on Sunday, November 5th. Remember the 5th of November. I'm certain that you've seen V for Vendetta. That seems like a BLG movie.
Yeah, I love a V for Vendetta.
But anyway, so we are potentially in line for the Dallas Philly Mageddon, which would
Mm.
be wild. Like I know you don't like it, but I brought up that I won a title against the city of Philadelphia last year. That would go a long way towards the bad blood between Dallas and Philly fans in general, even though would have nothing to do with the Cowboys and Eagles. But that it would happen leading up to that game. We would have 3 straight days of Dallas Philly games. Obviously 2 of them with much more consequence and matter, but it'd be kind of cool. And I would kind of like to watch the fight from as an independent-ish bystander from a baseball perspective, but certainly not from a football one.
Well, we'll see if we get there. But your point was that we might do a live show on a Thursday.
Right. So we are talking about it, and we certainly want to solicit the responses. By the way, I'm going to pull up the exact exchange, but we have some debate on the mixologist thing that I brought up last week. But we can solicit the responses from the aforementioned mixologist, and we're thinking about doing a live NFC's mixtape next Thursday evening. That is the
second.
3rd, or the 2nd. Gosh. So Thursday, November 2nd. We would do it kind of in parallel with Thursday Night Football starting. I believe the Steelers host the Titans on that Thursday night. So I don't know if you know, the Steelers and Eagles were once the same team. They call themselves
No one asked
Steelers,
for
and
this.
we could have some fun with that, and do a live show. Kind of just talk about Cowboys, Eagles, and obviously everything that happens between now and then as well. That's the plan if BLG approves, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to do a live show.
Well, I was looking up the mixologist thing, so I was kind of waiting on you to. buy me some time.
What else am I going to say? I mean, I think we had fun doing it last year. We did like Q&A things with chat feedback. RJ and I were kind of just riffing and, took questions or talking points from the chat. And it would be fun to do it again.
So I'm trying to find the exact exchange. I need you to buy me another second because I'm stuck finding
you
the
could always
tweet.
just do this before the show starts.
Well, you could do it in general yourself.
What is it about? This is for the naming of the podcast listener names.
Yeah, I found it. So I wanted to get the whole tweet. So Sean Daly was the person who I credited last week with coming up with the name Mixologist. And Sean said that he Twitter searched and found that, apparently the first entry ever for a Mixologist came from Sean. Anthony Yarbrough. I hope I pronounced this correctly. On Twitter, Anthony Yarbrough, but the bro in their last name is Brough, but the Twitter handle is like bro, like brother. Tweeted at me and said, "Wow, RJ, not only did I have to deal with the Philly loss this week, that was obviously coming off the Jets loss, but my brilliant creative name credit goes elsewhere. I've been Zuckerberged." And I have a tweet, Brandon, from August the 10th, 2022 at 2:02 p.m. I don't know what time zone this is for Anthony, but still. Anthony tweeted at you and I and said, "The mixologists, obviously." Later that day at 3:20 p.m., so an hour and 18 minutes later, was when Sean Daly offered the term mixologist. So I think that we owe an apology to Anthony Yarbrough, and I think Anthony is the true innovator of this name.
Okay.
Anthony, let the record show that I tried to fight for you. Sean, I tried to fight for you as well, and BLG ruined it all. So, wow. Are you ready, Brandon? Now that you ruined it.
I'm ready.
Okay. The Philadelphia Eagles, in their Kelly Green jerseys that are super cool that we have to talk about a million times, beat the Miami Dolphins. It was too much green.
You don't think those look cool?
I really hate to say this. The coolest looking thing, honestly, was Nick Sirianni's hoodie. That's a cool hoodie.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's
I know.
like.
Well, look, I mean, I'm gonna be
shocked
I'm gonna be objective here. Like, I'm I hate the Eagles and I don't love Nick at all. But I mean, if I have to be honest and provide my evaluation and analysis, I have to do it fairly. So Eagles fans, if you're looking for a hoodie, that's the one to get. Like, that is a beautiful, garment. Because the gray sleeves, like if you were to have all Kelly Green entirely, it's too much. That's where the gray sleeves really do kind of break it up nicely. But and I do wish that this had been against a team that didn't have any hint of green or aqua. That was a little bit visually distracting. But whatever the case, it was a solid performance. From a visual standpoint, also from a football one, 31-17, the final score. The Eagles stymied the super stout Miami Dolphins offense. Kind of a weird game for the Eagles, but I'll hear your take first.
Yeah, Alexis, who was like my deputy, at Bleeding Green Nation,
for sure,
saw that Nick Sirianni hoodie in the pregame, and she's like, "I have to order this now." And she she did, and she took a moment to go do that, and I don't blame her because I think it's a good choice. So shout out to Alexis. Yeah, I definitely think those are really cool aesthetic, and I would love to see an Eagles Cowboys game with the Eagles wearing those and the Cowboys wearing like that white and navy blue that I like the the one with the, I don't know what you would call it,
the one they wore against the Chargers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess so. That one,
I think that's technically their color rush jersey, just so you're aware. Yeah,
right. But I think a matchup like that would look really good. I think that's one of the Cowboys' best uniforms is when they go just that white and that blue, as opposed to getting that weird teal or whatever light blue color pants thing they mix in there. Anyway,
aqua.
Yeah, the silvery blue
is really the
thing.
color. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, don't need that. Anyway,
the football, Brandon, the football,
the football of it all. Well, we have to get to the Kevin Byard trade too, but before we get to that, because the game happened first. Yeah, this is a really impressive performance by Sean Desai's defense. I mean, the Dolphins' offense was not only the top in the league, but by far in terms of points. Like, if you look at the margin between first and second in points scored entering week 7, it's not that the Dolphins are first. It's that they're first by a margin between the same margin between second and 10 in scoring. And in yards, that margin from first to second is the same margin from second to 25. So that offense was obviously humming. Now, look, the Dolphins were missing a bunch of key players. No Teron Armstead, their starting center, Connor Williams, former Cowboy, of course, was out. No Devon Achan. Devon Achan.
That gets everyone. Everyone stumbles over that name.
They were missing some key players, but still, they had enough there to still be. They still had Tyreek Hill, still had Tua, who's been playing really well this season. Still Mike McDaniel, who's like the key to everything. So for the Eagles to go up against that offense, and the Eagles were doing it, mind you, without both starting safeties, and we're down to like their third string option at nickel cornerback, where it's a UDFA who never really even like took a lot of reps at nickel cornerback. So for them to go up against this Dolphins offense, and look, the Eagles offense playing ball control certainly helped the defense. I'm not going to ignore that, but still, for this offense to be slowed down the way it was and have their worst game against this Eagles defense, that's very encouraging for this defense, for Sean Desai. And this is exactly what we never saw out of Jonathan Gannon in terms of going up against another quarterback who could be considered one of the NFL's better quarterbacks, or at least playing like that, and at least have a chance against them instead of just getting totally gashed and not having any kind of chance and playing this style of defense where you're just sitting back and you're kind of just hoping for the other team to make a mistake, as opposed to actually being creative and forcing the issue and experimenting and doing different things. That's definitely what we've seen more out of Sean Desai. So this was a really good game by him, and he's helped out by the fact that the Eagles defensive line is so strong, and they had a great game that took pressure off of the secondary by just being so stout up front and shutting down the Dolphins running game and being disruptive. So yeah, it was just a really impressive defensive performance.
Yeah. I think the Dolphins are facing a lot of questions, obviously. Like, you can't beat elite teams, can't beat good teams. I mean, enjoy the AFC West mixtape if you want for that. It was amazing
AFC
that
East mixtape.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm all in a bag of emotions today.
Sorry.
It's amazing that slowing Tyreek to 11 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown is slowing him down. You know what I mean? Like, the dude is just so insane. I came away really impressed with the Philly defense, and this game was happening in parallel with one of the ALCS games as well, so it took a little bit of catching up for me. But I really, this is kind of a bummer to see the Dolphins fold. Kind of a bummer for Mike McDaniel. Like, I think everybody was really ready to give the Dolphins a lot of juice after this game, and it just didn't happen. I have some questions, and they're not pointed or slanted questions. But number one, what is your take on the penalty thing? Because this was, like I said, this was happening in parallel with the ALCS game. So I didn't get to feel like my timeline in real time. But I was checking in, and a lot of people were like, "This is ridiculous. This is insane." I think it's ridiculous to say that any NFL game is rigged or anything like that, but that is stark. I mean, to have one team penalized 10 times and the other none. Obviously, there was the Bradbury face mask that wasn't called, and then the ball don't lie moment right after.
Right.
That is a wild phenomenon, at the very least, to have happen.
Yeah, it is. I can't say it's hard to say for anyone to be able to, like, yeah, the Eagles just didn't commit any penalties the whole game. Like, that's very disingenuous to suggest. So I definitely think that the Eagles got away with some things, but I don't think that's the reason why they won the game. Only I think they outplayed the Dolphins in a lot of ways. Certainly they got some help, but also the Eagles kind of were on the wrong side of that earlier this year when they played the Commanders. So, like, I think those things tend to even out over the course of a season. You're going to get some games where you get some favorable calls. You're going to get some games where it goes the other way. But overall, I think the Eagles really outplayed. I mean, the fact that they only allowed the Dolphins to score one touchdown, that's pretty crazy. And that touchdown you mentioned was Tyreek Hill kind of just doing something that Tyreek Hill does. And, like, you kind of can't, like, I wasn't like, oh, wow, what a terrible play by the defense. It's like, it's Tyreek Hill. Like, he's going to do that. And you have backup safeties. And the guy that seemingly gave up that touchdown there, Terrell Edmonds, the Eagles just traded him away. So he's not even on the team anymore. Yeah, so I thought that was really impressive, especially because there was a point, early in the game there where Jalen Hurts fumbles and the Dolphins have a short field. And you're like, oh, no, they're going to score a touchdown there. And the defense held strong and only limited them to a field goal. And that was 3 of the 10 points they gave up on the day total, because the other touchdown by the Dolphins was the pick six. I guess we can flip it over to talk about Jalen Hurts and the offense.
That was my other question. I mean, we're at a point now, 10 turnovers in 7 games. It's like some of it is fluky and, luck or whatever. Like, if you want to just cast like a wide net around it. And I think Cowboys fans can certainly understand that. I also can understand why Cowboys fans are not willing to understand it, given the way that everybody, a lot of Eagles fans included, pointed at Dak Prescott last year. but I'm willing to be a little bit more calm in today's discussion, despite how shattered my own sports heart is. But 10 turnovers in 7 games, that's a turnover-prone quarterback at this point. Like, you can call it fluky, you can call whatever. In 2023, he's absolutely turnover-prone.
It's 11 in his last 8 if you go back to the Super Bowl.
I don't know why you do this. Like, I mean, what's the point of that? Like,
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
just saying,
that
'cause if you look at
that
his
makes the case worse for no reason. Like, there's a big enough sample size in this season. It's not like, oh, it's been like 4 games. Let's include the 5th.
in
Like,
his last, it's just true. In his last, the 8 games he's last
but why
played,
stop at 8
he's
then?
turned.
Why not go to the other 2 playoff games and go to 10? You know what I mean? Like, why just
Okay, then
include the
it's
Super Bowl?
11 in his last 10 in that case. Whatever you want to say, that makes it a little bit better. But in any case, the point being is it's too much. It's absolutely too much. And he only had 8 turnovers in 15 regular season games, and so 17 games prior to the Super Bowl last year. That includes 2 playoff games, and he only played in 15 regular season games because he
Right.
missed 2. He only had 8. So he's clearly turning the ball over too much. It's weird because I think that's been one of the best things throughout his career, is not putting the ball in harm's way. And I think that's kind of why in the past I've, like, especially in training camp practices and stuff, and why I wasn't as high on him as others, is because I think he kind of plays a game that isn't super flashy, but I think it's easy to take that for granted sometimes, at least in terms of as a passer, because he just doesn't put the ball in harm's way. So I think that's kind of like the reward to the playing that kind of not super always impressive style. But he is turning the ball over way too much, and part of the issue, I think, is that he's holding on to the ball too long. He entered week 7 with the second longest average time to throw at 3.21 seconds. That is the exact same amount of time he held the ball on average in 2021, when he ranked 39 out of 39 quarterbacks, the slowest release time in the league. This year, it's only ahead of Justin Fields, who I very much do not believe in. And I've said one of his biggest issues throughout his career is holding on to the ball for forever. Like, sometimes you can't just wait for guys to uncover all the time. You have to throw with anticipation. You have to get the ball out. Now, there is a other side to this coin. The near touchdown pass that Hurts had to AJ Brown on that 4th down, that is a result of holding on to the ball and making things happen. I get there's a balance to be struck there, but last year in 2022, he was at 2.86 seconds, and that was 28th out of 41 quarterbacks. So he was 0.4 seconds quicker on average last year than he was this year. I think he has to get a little bit closer towards that number. I think he needs to be getting the ball a little bit quicker and not just holding on to it forever. So that's definitely one of the issues I have with him. And then I think that speaks to, it's not just that he's like turning the ball over on fumbles when you're holding it that long or giving the defensive line obviously a chance to get to you. I think it's also speaking to getting another phone call. Stop calling me, everyone, during the
It's
podcast.
Jalen. He's pissed off. They're talking about me, Brandon.
I think him holding onto the ball that long speaks to, like, not seeing the field super well, and which is why you're seeing some of these interceptions and him looking uncomfortable.
He is much closer to that 2021 version of himself than the 2022 exemplary, arguable league MVP. And that, was always an argument, was that last season was this, like, almost the 100th percentile kind of season, that there was no way he was going to be able to stick to that. I mean, but I think everybody thought like it might regress to like the 75th percentile, which would be, still really passable. I mean, at this point, you have to assume he's going to turn the ball over at least once in a given game. I mean, he's averaging more than 1 turnover per game. And it's not just tipped interceptions. It's poor throws, poor reads, it's fumbles. And I mean, I don't know that I'm certainly not going to place all the blame on him. I'm going to place most of the blame on him, but I have no idea why he's being used the way he is. I have no idea what the obsession is with QB draws and running him like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now my other question was going to be, what's his health status? I mean, so he's got to put on a leg brace or knee brace or whatever for the second half. Like this, I wouldn't say it feels like the wheels are starting to fall off, but like the vibes around this are tenuous at the very least.
Yeah, the injury thing is weird. We'll get a chance to see the injury report this week, and if he's on there or not. Right. He clearly is little. It could just be a case of, players get banged up over the course of the season. And sometimes guys are dealing with things that don't necessarily get listed on the injury report because everyone is injured to some extent. No one's like fully healthy 100%. I will say, to be fair to Jalen Hurts, because I'm criticizing him here, I do think this is a very real quality that matters when it comes to quarterbacks, how they respond. And after those turnovers, especially the pick 6, He led a touchdown drive the very next drive, and that put a really good drive together. And that's important because some
that feels like
quarterback
moving the goalpost a little bit. He's
no, it
turning the
doesn't.
ball over. That's the problem. Like that can't happen.
I came out saying that's the big issue, but it also matters how that manifests moving forward because some quarterbacks allow that to spiral and it snowballs and they crumble, and that's what Carson Wentz did a lot of the time. Jalen Hurts, to his credit, did not let it spiral. Now, again, moving forward, I don't want to hear like every time, every game. Oh well, he always responds after throwing the turnovers or committing the turnovers. You can't have the turnovers. I started out by saying the turnovers too much. They have to come down. I think he can get there. I think he will get there. But again, as the sample size widens where there's more and more, then it's just too much and it has to stop sooner than later.
I am not willing to give him the exclusive benefit for rebounding. I mean, you just properly threw flowers at the Eagles defense. I would give them the crux of the benefit, at least for this particular game. And I don't mean to say like Jalen has nothing to do with the offensive success, but AJ Brown is just so stupid talented. The offensive line is just
why don't we get into that? Because people say I go too easy on you, and I do, and you like to like bag on.
Why don't we get into something that avoids placing blame on Jalen Hurts?
You could not have been more wrong about.
Yeah, let's now we're really moving the goalpost, so we don't have to. Okay, RJ was wrong on AJ Brown. That's fine, but that doesn't change the fact that Jalen Hurts is limiting the Eagles' offensive potential.
Incredibly wrong.
There's a lot of commenters who noted on last week's episode that you kind of moved the goalpost when it came to Jalen. You're going to do it again, and now you're going to move them to me. Again, I was wrong on AJ Brown. I even wrote an apology last year when that was the case. And for what it's worth, I was at least, early in the season before this, like, was the streak snapped? What was the streak, like 145 yards or whatever that he had going on? Well, I'm actually seriously asking. He had like a streak of
what are you saying?
AJ Brown had a streak going of like 150 yards, 145 yards in a game or something like that. I don't know if that held up this past week. He had, what did he have? 100 and I already left that game. He had exactly 137. So he might have fallen short of. I saw the streak during the Jets game, and let's see here. Since you clearly don't know AJ, you're so obsessed with him, but you don't know the streak I'm talking about.
He's just the third player in NFL history to have 125 at receiving.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember.
Straight games.
I couldn't remember if it was 125 or 145. So the streak lives on as a result of Sunday.
That streak does. Yeah, and
right,
the only other
that's what I was players
have done that are Calvin Johnson.
Okay, well, I'm just saying after the first 2 weeks of the season, there was no, RJ, you're looking like you're right on this here. So let's just relax. Again, AJ Brown's an incredibly talented wide receiver. It's amazing, by the way, too, that he has a streak of 125 yards in now 5 games, and that he's still like 100 yards behind Tyreek Hill. Again, that's just incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill is insane. Although I do think you can. I mean, AJ Brown outshined, Tyreek in that spot, and I think if you're talking about best receiver in the NFL, I mean, I think AJ has he has a stake to claim in that right now.
I think he has an argument. I'm still willing to give the benefit of the doubt to Justin Jefferson. It's weird. Jamar Chase lost some steam in that conversation. Like, I feel like Jamar had a really prominent seat at that table. That's cooled off a little bit. Tyreek's right there. But again, the point that I was making that you wanted to distract from was that I'm not willing to give Jalen a ton of benefit for like responding to the turnovers, and the turnovers keep happening. And they're doing a great job defensively of stifling offenses and not allowing them to take advantage of all these turnovers. But like this next run of games after the Commanders contest is really going to highlight, if you do that against the Cowboys, the Bills, the Niners, whatever, the Chiefs especially, like that's a really bad recipe for
I agree.
success.
They have to go down. I don't deny it.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the Kevin Byard trade now, or do you want to talk? So the trade happened on Monday afternoon. It was
Is this infuriating as like a rival fan? Because it's just like,
I mean, it's not as infuriating as you want it to be. It's just,
it just seems like I would be annoyed if the Cowboys, because that's a really low cost to get a guy who's a 2-time All-Pro.
But so like I'm not at all like smushing the trade, but like again, this gets done every time. Like now, this is just like a thing. So like this got done with the DeAndre Swift trade. That has paid off, obviously. This got the same conversation happened with the Robert Quinn trade a year ago. And what like impact did that really have?
I didn't like that one as much as other people. I said
Okay,
that at
but
the
my
time.
point is like you know that what I'm saying is true, that like the same memes are like Howie Roseman did it again with, and like Howie Roseman has a
Yes, but
he
that
has a
one was dumb to me. This is way different than that.
all I'm saying is he has a track record that now lends to like the same joke being made, and this is
Mhm.
much closer to like actually being sound than the Robert Quinn thing was. But so
Right.
like I'm way less annoyed about it than I used to be at this point in time. But again, the cost was a fourth and fifth
No,
and
5th and 6th.
fifth and sixth and
And
Terrell Edmonds.
and yeah, and Terrell Edmonds, who they
Okay,
probably honestly like might have cut if they, to make a roster spot open for Kevin Byard. So I mean, for the Titans, obviously it's just a matter of they're kind of taking an L on the season and looking ahead to the future. And Terrell Edmonds is just like, okay, we need someone to help fill safety reps for us. For the Eagles, it's a huge move because Kevin Byard has never missed a game in 7 years, and the Eagles have been decimated kind of by injury at safety this year. Reed Blankenship has missed a couple games now. He's been a really good player. And I think when you have him healthy, if he can get healthy, the Eagles didn't put him on IR. So I'm guessing that he can either play either this week or next week. We'll see. Um, to have him and Kevin Byard, I mean, I think that's suddenly out of a spot where the Eagles were figuring to be weak and one of the like worst safety tandems in the league. They might not have one of the best, assuming Byard can kind of give them what he's been for most of his career, which is a very good player who makes plays on the ball, hasn't missed a game. So for the Eagles to only give up, like a fifth and a sixth and a player they were going to probably cut anyway, I mean, I think it's a steal of a deal. I don't like using that term liberally as other people do and saying it's Howie season all the time. But I think this is like a no-brainer kind of move. That was such a big weakness for them. Again, like let me paint you the picture of how dire their safety situation was the past couple weeks. They have Terrell Edmonds, who hasn't been good as their only guy or full-time starter, who's only like, and then sorry, doing a bad job of explaining this. This game against the Dolphins, Justin Evans and Reed Blankenship. Those are your week one starters. Justin Evans on IR, Reed Blankenship banged up, not able to play. So you have Terrell Edmonds, who has been bad, and the Eagles clearly haven't wanted to play unless they've had to, playing 100% of the snap. So that's not ideal. And then Sidney Brown making his first start after missing multiple games with a hamstring injury. And he was a third round pick, a rookie. And behind them, the only two guys you had are Josiah Scott, who has been a really bad slot corner and performed very poorly against the Cowboys when they played in Dallas last year, and a big reason why Dak had a big game. Couldn't cover CeeDee Lamb at all.
yeah, Dak can't be the reason that Dak had a big game. It just has to be everybody else.
No, I'm saying like that's
right.
They kept targeting him over and over because he was terrible. So Josiah Scott, who was a slot cornerback and has taken some safety reps in practice, that's your top backup option. In addition to Mekhi Garner, who's a practice squad call up and only played at cornerback, an undrafted rookie free agent in the offseason, and is now like being moved to safety in an emergency. So they were looking very dire there. So to me, like I'm almost shocked that they were able to get him so cheap because it's like they had no leverage. Like they had no leverage. They're in a really desperate situation, and they got a fan. Not only did they get someone to like just fill in and help them, they got like a potential star who's also signed for 2024. So it could be a rental, but they could also work something out if they, both sides are liking how things are going and they want to work out a deal with him and have him there. So it's a really exciting move.
I certainly understand the excitement. I just, and I'm not saying this means like, oh, it is insignificant. Like, when is the last? I'm actually seriously asking, like, what is the last safety trade in the NFL or big time safety acquisition that like put a team over the edge? I mean, I certainly understand like where Howie is elite, like isn't in his like big blockbuster moves. It's always in identifying areas of need and filling them at low costs, and that's what this ultimately is. But I don't know if you have an answer to the safety question.
I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson getting him last year was like a big deal for the
That's
Eagles
fair.
because
That's a
he
really
led
good
the
example.
NFL interceptions. Like that was a needle mover. So I'm not saying Byard is going to come in and do the same thing, and I think it hurts that like the value of him being here kind of is diminished from the sense that he doesn't have off-season time to get up to speed. So that kind of hurts a little bit. At the same time, neither really did CJ last year, and he was actually moving from slot to safety, and he did pretty well. So maybe that's not a big factor at all. But yeah, I don't think it's not like putting it over the top as much as you're just fixing a huge area of weakness
Yeah, you
in
raise
concern
the
right now.
floor. That's Howie Roseman's truly elite quality. And sometimes you miss on those things. Like Robert Quinn was, ideally going to be like a raising of the floor last year, and that just didn't happen. And that's fine. But like it shouldn't discourage you from taking the chances and the shots over and over and over again. And again, for 2 day 3 picks and somebody who you were probably going to cut anyway, like it is a logical move to make. The last thing I have on this isn't at all related to the trade itself. But did you know that I think it was Kevin Byard who had the beef with Deion Sanders? Do you remember this?
Deion Sanders didn't know who
Yeah, he
Kevin
didn't know
Byard
who he
was.
was. I think I might be misremembering, but I think he thought that Kevin Byard was a fan who was tweeting at
I think
him,
so.
and he was like, "Hey man, get out of here! Like you're some fan." I think it was during the NFL Top 100 reveal discussion show or like all pro voting or something. Back when the NFL Top 100 had a shred of legitimacy. And so, yeah, I thought that was that was funny.
Well, there
That
was
was a long
that,
time ago, but
and there
are
was
you
also
looking this?
the Kevin Byard, celebrating on the Cowboys star thing going around.
That is the true reason how he traded for him, isn't it?
Yep.
Anyway, okay, are we ready to move on to the other game? This was kind of a good week for like you and I, like nice and efficient. There were only 2 games to discuss. Are you ready to do that?
Well, we have to get to the Cowboys.
Well, no, they didn't play a
Go in
game,
order.
but they didn't play a game. That's what I'm saying. Like we can talk about them. We have to
Yeah, but we
talk
have to
about.
check in on them.
I mean, nothing happened. They didn't play a game.
What's
That's what
going
I'm saying.
on?
We
Is
we
there
have to
any injury developments? Is there anything at all?
But here we always discuss the games and then we discuss the moving forward. So all the things you're talking about are in the moving forward portion of the episode.
Okay.
So, but hold up, so that we can move forward, let's take a very quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back.
We're here on the mixtape. Back from the break.
Go Spurs, go. Anyway, okay, Brandon, let's talk about the other game. I don't think it will require much discussion.
How does it feel to be a Manchester United fan, but then you're saying go Spurs, go?
That has never bothered me. And this is stupid, but I am so happy that my Spurs have the Twitter handle Spurs. Anyway, the New York Giants.
That's kind of funny anyway, because like I feel like more than any other team in soccer, correct me if I'm wrong, does Tottenham refer to their team name? You know what I mean? Like a lot of teams don't refer to their like team mascot. I feel like soccer, you don't see that as much. Like Chelsea's logo is like a lion or whatever, but they don't. No one's like go Lions.
They go by Chelsea Blues a lot. Like they'll be like the
Yeah, but it's not like reference to the animal that their logo thing kind of is.
I would say Wolverhampton, they go by the Wolves a lot.
Okay, well, that kind of makes more sense because it's in the name still, though.
I don't know why you're allowed to root for Chelsea because you're not from there, and those are your dumb rules. So
that's not my rule.
Interesting. The New York Giants won. This was a surprise to us on Sunday, 14-7. Really gross, boring score. The final score in Tyrod Taylor's first win for the Giants. 14-7 the final. Giants now 2-5, still last in the division. The Commanders fall to 3-4. The vibes have never been worse for the Commanders. Like, this is a horrible loss, and it's kind of a horrible win for the Giants. You slacked me when Brian Dable kicked the field goal.
First drive of the game.
Yeah,
into the wind.
We agreed that it was a poor decision. I understand it was a windy day, and that can kind of affect like the way you approach things. Like again, this was
all the more reason to go for it.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I understand that can be a factor. Like maybe you're worried about this, that, or the other. But like, and I understand you're limited with Tyrod Taylor and things like that. But like, did anybody enjoy watching this game? Like, did anybody derive joy from this?
I don't think so. I mean, the Commanders are definitely in a bad way, and I originally picked the Commanders to win this game when we did the mixtape last week. Yeah, but then as the week went along, I switched my pick, as I said on TGI Football, because I was like, wait a minute, that Commanders win over the Falcons was like not good, dude. They got doubled up. They got outgained like 402 to 192 or whatever. Like it was just the turnovers being the difference, and obviously turnovers are a big deal, but some of that is volatility and luck and whatnot, and the point being, like, the Commanders did not play good football to beat the Falcons. And I was like, not that the Giants are looking great right now, but I'm like, the Commanders just don't deserve the benefit. Commanders are not good. Like, they had that game against the Eagles, great. But ever since that, what have they done?
Okay. Ever since Ron decided to play for overtime, things have fallen really far apart, even though they beat the Falcons.
Yeah, like, what is their resume since? Okay, so they got housed by the Bears at home, like destroyed for a Bears team that hadn't was on like a 14-game losing streak at the time. You got destroyed by that team on Thursday Night Football in a primetime spot. So, okay, great. And then you beat the Falcons by one possession, but you kind of got like outplayed by them. And I think that game was kind of, as we've seen, more about the Falcons beating themselves than you really like taking it to them. And then you lost to the Giants, where you only scored one touchdown, which is pathetic. And I've seen some of the discourse over at Hogs Haven about how the Eric Bieniemy honeymoon is certainly not a thing anymore, and
And
they're frustrated
the
with
Sam
him.
Howell like love affair. Like I saw, I think it was on the Commanders subreddit. After I think it might have been after the Falcons win, there was a post that was titled something like, "I think we may have found the guy," and it was like, no, like don't do that, don't like. And that's nothing against Sam Howell, but like that's not the guy.
Sam Howell is like Taylor Heineke, basically, in terms of like I think he can be a really nice backup to have. Like, wouldn't you want Sam Howell as like, or wouldn't you take Sam Howell as your backup quarterback if you could? Sure. I think he's shown enough there to be like a guy who can come in and be a relief starter or a bridge
I
quarterback.
saw a
But
tweet along those lines. I think it was Eric Eager who tweeted something like Sam Howell is going to be a career backup. And like all these like Commanders fans took that really
mhm,
offensive, like took offense to that. And he was like, no, this is like a really like
especially for they
kind
drafted
thing.
him.
Like that's
Yeah,
yeah, like a fifth round draft pick turned into like a career backup. Like
that's a
make that Colt
great pick.
McCoy money. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with that. They're like, there's no shame in that whatsoever. And like not even just in like a shame standpoint, but like from a playing athleticism production standpoint, like
hmm
career backups are necessary. Like look at Gardner Minshew right now. You know what I mean? Like that's a
hmm
fine life to live as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think Sam Howell could be like like Ryan Fitzpatrick, like that kind of guy who like bounces around the league, or Josh
Or
McCown,
Taylor
whatever you want
Heineke,
to say.
to
Yeah,
your point.
Heineke, he's in that mix. I think he's clearly not like a joke. Like he's not pathetic. He can play in the NFL, but you're not really going too far with him. And it's not entire. The struggles haven't been entirely on him when you look at how bad their offensive line has been. Like part of it is because he does hold the ball. Part of it is because their offensive line isn't great and they're giving up a lot of pressure. So certainly it's not literally just all on him, but he is not a quarterback who's going to help them rise above those issues. And they're not in a good spot right now. And we wanted to have a Commanders person on this week. It didn't work out to talk to because kind of wanted to get more of the boots on the ground sense from that team. But did you see the comments that Jonathan Allen made after the game?
Yeah, about he was like pissed off and it's the same stuff every year. Like
Mhm.
imagine feeling like you're owned by the Giants. You know what I mean? Like that would just
Well, they
be
are like
I know,
relatively.
but
You know
like
how
go
like
ahead.
we talk about how the Eagles and Cowboys own the Giants, and they have. Well, the Giants own the Commanders, and that's a pretty pathetic position to be in. So yikes.
So the game was kind of gross, but so we're kind of picking apart who these teams are right now. Jacina Anderson tweeted, what now? About 30 minutes ago in real time for you and I. So this was on Tuesday morning, Tuesday lunchtime ish. She tweeted, "Meanwhile, it's my understanding that there are several identifiable teams that have both interest in trading for either Commanders defensive ends Montez Sweat
Mm,
or Chase Young, and are willing to offer either a long-term deal ahead of free agency." Obviously, that is a component to this. Yeah, I mean, like we're at that time, obviously, in the season, like right around Halloween. The title of this has to do with October, obviously, the best month. And some teams are having to look in the mirror and kind of assess and have hard discussions and decisions made. The Titans have already clearly done that to a degree. The Commanders are right there. And I would, they have the new ownership and everything and potential new rebrand again coming around. Like, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to cash out on certain players, now is the time. You got to do it before the trade deadline. This is actually the last mixtape before the deadline, which is next Tuesday.
hmm. Well, I mean, we're going to record before the deadline because that's at 4 p.m.
That's true. But the last one that people will hear
True.
before the
Well,
deadline.
maybe we should put it. We'll see depending on how that day goes when we actually put it out. But yeah, I mean, if the Commanders win this game, they take care of business. They're 4-3. The Cowboys are 4-2 right now. So it's like, okay, we're still in the mix. We're still
You,
here.
you can have a conversation with yourself. You know what I mean? Like you can have a fair conversation,
Well,
but you
especially
can't right
because
now.
they also have the Eagles coming up this week at that point. So it's like, okay, we're 4-3. If we beat the Eagles, then we're still very much alive in the division. We're in the mix here. You lose to the Giants, you're 3-4. Maybe you're still in the mix for a wild card spot there, but man, I think they really need to take I'm going to be fascinated to see what they do in terms of the trade deadline because it feels like if they're thinking about this thing correctly, they should absolutely sell. Why are you holding on for like a lame duck head coach? I mean, just wipe the slate clean. It's a new ownership anyway. Let's just be like, we don't really care about this season. It doesn't really matter that much in the bigger picture. Let's just let's sell some parts. I'm not saying you have to clear the cupboard completely. Like, no, you don't just get rid of everyone or good young players. But if you're not going to pay someone like Chase Young, if you've determined or you're worried about losing him, because guess what? It takes two to tango. Like Chase Young might decide he doesn't want to be there. Then you have to assess that properly and get some value for him while you can, and think about the long term here and not just think about this season. Because I mean, even if you do salvage this season as much as you possibly can, like what are you really accomplishing still? Like winning a playoff game, maybe. They have to look at this honestly and with a sober view and realize that, what they have right now is very temporary and not, it's a lame duck year, and they need to think about future seasons, not this season.
Montez Sweat and Chase Young both have, I mean, we neither of us think that the Commanders are a playoff team, right? Obviously. So you have, if you're the Commanders,
7th seed at best.
Right, but still, like if you're the Commanders, you have 11, maybe 12 games left of both of these players. Why? Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to sell. You have to. You can't. It's not even the Kevin Byard thing where the player's under contract next year. You know what I mean? Like you can't. There's no sense in not having that. And your fans will forgive you. Like this is one of those. Like maybe there are some Titans fans who are like, "What the hell are you doing?" You know what I mean? Like whatever. But like every Commanders fan is going to be like, you know what? We understand. Like we're past.
I think they're going to like it. They should be. They should be encouraged. They're like,
we're past
taking
the darkest
long-term
point.
vision.
Exactly. Like we're it's a slow come up, but we're actually moving in a positive direction and doing things that imply that we are building towards the future. The Giants side of this, again, I don't really have a strong takeaway.
Well, we have to talk about it.
My strongest takeaway is probably that Darren Waller's kind of getting involved a little bit. You know what I mean? This was a really good. This was the best Darren Waller game.
Why is that happening?
No Daniel Jones, obviously. But like my point is, like, if you're a Giants fan, I think you have to feel like, hey, there's potential to Darren Waller here. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's an exciting thing because that looked DOA like for the longest time. And so that is objectively an exciting thing for the Giants.
Over the course of his career, Daniel Jones has been a negative play machine in terms of either sacks or turnovers. That is the reality. That is who he's been. We talked about Hurts being that guy this season. That's not to the same degree, I don't think.
We're not talking about it. It's just objective fact. That's who he is this season.
Well, you brought it up.
Everybody brought it up. Anybody with eyes brought it up. I mean.
But, like, if you look at who Tyrod Taylor has been, Tyrod Taylor, I should say. I always say Tyrod. Right. I know it's Tyrod. Sorry. And he's not that guy. He's typically been a guy who takes care of the ball. I mean, the most interceptions he's ever thrown in a season, do you know how much it is?
6.
Yeah. Like he's a guy who takes care of the ball. Now, there's some risk reward element there. You probably
Can I guess the season? I'm sorry. I want to guess the season if that's possible.
Well, it's multiple seasons.
2017 Buffalo was one.
No.
Dang.
It was 15 and 16, the 2 years prior, when he started 14 and 15 games respectively. Dang. So, but my point here is that he is a guy who, he's not bringing you obviously like the flashy upside as much as some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a backup for a reason, but he's a guy who has been able to take care of the ball. And that's also kind of not the same level, but like something of what we saw last year with Taylor Heineke relative to Carson Wentz. When you take out that highly volatile starter who can at least kind of just take care of the ball and help move the offense a little bit, it doesn't mean you have a Super Bowl or like serious ceiling all of a sudden, but all of a sudden you look like a much more respectable team. And that's what the Giants, not that they look great, but they looked like a more respectable team, at least relative to their inferior competition. And so that's when you talk about like quarterback controversy or debate or whatever. I mean, I think it's incredibly fair to say if you want to win games now, Tyrod Taylor is your best option to do that. Now, is that the number one value? Because you're in a spot where things aren't looking great and you paid all this money to Daniel Jones, but it's sunk cost fallacy to just be like, we definitely have to play him no matter what. If that's what you believe because you think that's what's in the best long-term interest of your franchise, then I understand that. But if the priority is winning games now, then it's not crazy to me to say that Tyrod is the better option.
Yeah, I kind of hope they do. I think we both do because he plays them out of Caleb Williams, Drake May territory. if he starts 10 games for them across the rest of, not even, I guess at this point, 7 or 8 games. But yeah, I mean, and the Jones thing is, look, everyone's on the same page here. You know what I mean? Like this, nobody is like, no, Daniel Jones is better. Like, no, like I don't think there's a Giants fan out there who's like arguing.
I don't know.
That.
I think you're wrong about that.
I mean, I don't think anyone who's being fair is arguing that in all sincerity. And so, I mean, they can get out of that deal after next year. So, I mean, you're I wouldn't say you're stuck, but you're stuck through 2024. I mean, you really could, I think his guaranteed money is $36 million. I had it up in a minute. Yeah, $36 million next year. So, I mean, he's got a cap number of $47 million. I mean, yeah, it's a tough scene, but like, you could, if you know what I mean? Like, it would be stupid and silly and everyone would make fun of you and dunk all over you. But like the goal is to be better. I mean, I just want to like throw this out for hypothetical. So, yes or no, are the Giants kind of a quarterback away from legitimate competition? I'd say yes.
I mean, from being like a wild card team, sure.
So, this is maybe the best day I'll ever have to ask this question. If Kirk Cousins is on the market and you're the Giants, I mean, like, like
especially not good fit because of their offensive line.
I mean, that's a fair point, but like
Gerard can run around a little bit, and I think that helps with that offensive line.
I'm just trying to figure out what the answer is for them in 2024, and they're in a weird place, and I think that's where like Sunday's a frustrating win because you feel like you have some things that can make this happen, but you have nothing that you can really like rely on and hang your hat on. You know what I mean?
I mean, imagine, like I don't think the Ravens were not going to match an offer sheet for Lamar, but I mean, I think it's pretty fair to be like, what are we doing?
I saw a lot of
paid Daniel Jones all this money, but we couldn't throw an offer sheet at Lamar.
Well, first of all, you famously hate Lamar, so I don't know why you're using
I don't hate him
as a case study right now.
I actually look at his playoff numbers, unlike everyone else, and acknowledge them, unlike literally everyone else who's unwilling to admit that they are.
You don't look at Justin Herbert's playoff numbers or anything like that. That's cool. Anyway,
I am not in on Justin Herbert and the Chargers. That is not. You're not painting the correct
picture. You were so in. You were more in on them than you were out on Lamar.
I left that. That's a sinking ship. And I left before it totally went underwater. And I took the Cowboys to beat them. Like I've not been picking the Chargers this year. I've been picking against them like every game.
This isn't about this either, but I saw this tweet, and apologies to where I saw it because I forgot. But the tweet was something along the lines of like it might have been Eric Eager again, but like all these teams, or it might have been Brad Spielberger, but all these teams were falling all over themselves to sign Deshaun Watson. But and while Lamar was never like truly on the market, like nobody, to our knowledge at least, had an offer sheet ready for him. You know what I mean? Like he was semi-available, not completely available, but like, you know what I mean? Like it is kind of amazing that nobody pursued him, and like were there 5 or 6 teams that pursued Deshaun Watson in that whole mess? I mean, so okay, let's spin forward, Brandon. This is NFC East Mageddon week. Did you know this?
I don't know. No.
Okay. So
I don't know what that means.
I'm about to tell you. The best thing in our line of work, I don't feel this way all the time, but is a noon game because you get in, you get done, you get out, you have Sunday evening to kind of enjoy, and you can watch the Sunday night game. Although real bummer that like, you would love to finish your Sunday work and then have like a Chiefs Bengals game to kind of watch. But like this week, it's like, hey, Brandon, you did all your work. Here's Chargers Bears. You know what I mean? Like
we need to stop catering to the West Coast, and we should move the NFL schedule at least up 1 hour. The entire schedule. Game should start at 12.
I'm fine. I mean, as somebody Eastern. Who experiences games starting at 12, it's awesome. I mean, so that's what I mean. I'm sure you would enjoy.
Well, why can we have a London game that starts at 9:30 on the East Coast, but we can't have all the regular games start at like noon? Like that's too early. Because then at that point you have
they do start at 12 in the proper time.
Yeah, 12, 3, and 7, and that's for East Coast time, and that's a great number.
Anyway, NFC East Mageddon is when all 4 teams play in the same time slot, which is happening this week. All 4 teams are playing in the noon slot. Obviously, the Eagles are visiting FedEx Field, so that's 2 teams right there. The MetLife Bowl is happening in parallel. with the Giants as the technical home team, and the Cowboys are hosting the Rams in the noon slot as well, noon central, that is. So we'll go in order the way DraftKings has it laid out. Since we can't go chronologically, they're all kicking off simultaneously. But our friends at DraftKings have the Eagles as 6.5-point favorites on the road against the Commanders. You mentioned we'll keep eyes certainly on the Jalen Hurts injury situation. The Commanders might, I'm sure you're arguing for them to trade Montez Sweat or Chase Young now. Maybe that is a looming factor as well. But other than that, I don't think there are any real big question marks hovering over this game like they are others around the league.
I am not deciding my lock of the week officially on Tuesday. I've not looked all the lines, but I did make this my lock of the week last time the Eagles Commanders played, and it didn't work out in terms of the Eagles covering. They did win the game. I'm considering making this my lock of the week. I think the Eagles have not had that, statement win in terms of like a blowout, comfortable win yet. And I think this could be it because the Commanders have not been trending in a good way. That Eagles defensive line is looking very good as it has most of the season. And I think they're going to actually be able to take advantage of the Commanders offensive line this time around. I think the Commanders gave the Eagles their best punch last time. And I don't think they can do that again. I think that was like the all out kind of, they gave the Eagles as much as they could. I don't think they're going to replicate that. And I am going to take the Eagles to win and cover. And I feel very confident about it.
I'm not ready to put the Eagles back in the box that I had them, where they were like, I'll trust them until I don't have a reason to. Like they're much closer to that after the comfortable win over the Dolphins, but they're still not quite there yet, especially with all the Hurts turnovers. But I will still lay 6.5 points. I just don't believe. It's not really even the Commanders that I don't believe in. I don't believe in Ron Rivera, and I will forever hold it against you that you thought he was a better coach than Mike McCarthy. Anyway,
okay.
The New York Giants
to the Eagles is a bad move for the Eagles.
New York Giants are 2.5-point home dogs to the New York Jets. That is a real tough scene. I'm not an East Coast person, so I don't know much about the Giants Jets rivalry. If they're, if that really is like a thing. I thought
some people are a fan of both, which is weird.
I thought it was so silly on Hard Knocks when Aaron Rodgers referred to MetLife as Jet Life, and it's not even that the joke is silly, but the stadium opened in 2010, I think, and so it's like, hey, dude, that joke's been made. You know what I mean? Like, you're super clever, Aaron, for coming up with this thing that no one has said over the last decade and change, but whatever. Anyway, still, the Jets are everyone's really excited about the Jets. Obviously, their last game was the win against the Eagles. I don't know that I'm willing to take them as 2.5-point favorites, but and again, this is a weird like home dog, home or road favorite because it is their shared building. So kind of a pick 'em in that sense. I think I'll take the Jets at 2.5-point favorites. I trust Zach Wilson more than I trust Daniel Jones. Certainly, I trust.
Wow.
I mean,
what a sad sentence.
But do you disagree?
I mean, I don't trust either of them. I don't.
I mean, but still, like if you had to pick one, I think I trust Zach Wilson with what the Jets are doing. I really do feel like the Jets are setting Zach Wilson up to succeed more, or they're, you know what I mean? They're understanding of his limitations, and they're not having him push beyond.
That's fair.
Those.
That's a fair point. Oh, so that's coaching. Yeah, better
right.
coaching.
No, I trust Robert Saleh more than I do Brian Dable. I just trust the Jets and what they have going on. I think this is a big Garrett Wilson game.
So do we know if Daniel Jones is playing or not? It's Tuesday. It's early. I guess we don't.
I mean,
officially
that's
know.
what I'm saying.
But do we know if he has a chance?
I mean, it's possible. He's not on IR. I mean, yeah, I mean, so that's technically possible.
Well, if that's the case, I think you have to consider he might.
You can couch this. You can say if Jones this, if Tyrod this. You know what I mean? We'll take that as your submission here on Tuesday.
I mean, I'll take the Jets. I think their defensive front, which obviously gave the Eagles issues, and the Eagles have a much better offensive line than the Giants do. I think they're going to give the Giants offensive line, which has been banged up and dealing with a lot of problems. I think they're going to give the Giants front some issues. And look, the Giants beat the Commanders, but they scored 14 points, and it was a very close game at the end. Like they didn't look great. They just beat a team that's looking even worse than them right now. So I think the Jets are not amazing, but I think they can be at least solid. And I think that's certainly more than what the Giants have been for most of this season. So I'll take the Jets to cover and win.
Okay. So we're on the same page there. We're actually on the same page so far. We have taken both of the Green Nations, including the superior one, which is Green Nation. They won the battle. Until you meet again. Anyway, final game and first opportunity to talk about America's team. The Dallas Cowboys are 6-point favorites at home against the Los Angeles Rams this week. Rams coming off that loss to the Steelers, really awful spot call on the Kenny Pickett sneak. By the way, that game, for all of you who don't listen to TGI football, first of all, how dare you? But that was our same game parlay pick for last week, or the game we structured it around, and we got as close as we ever have, Brandon. It was a huge bummer. You took your leg was the one that failed. I think it was under.
I don't regret it though. I thought it was a fair thing to do.
Steven Serta and I hit, and I think it was 51.5 rushing yards that you took the under on with Najee Harris, and he had 53.
That's classic. Vegas knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
What a bummer. Anyway, Cowboys 6-point favorites at home. You said what's going on. All is kind of well right now. Jerry Jones on Tuesday morning both kind of said that the Cowboys would and would not consider making a move at the trade deadline. Just kind of talked out of both sides of his mouth.
Wow, interesting.
There's been no real discernible massive update. Through the bye week. Again, they were obviously off last week. Matthew Stafford, from the area, played Little League with Clayton Kershaw. I don't know if you knew that. I really don't know if you know that. That's like a trope that gets said all the time.
No, I do. That's yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, I don't. I know you're obsessed with the Cowboys, so that makes sense that you know.
Sure.
Yeah, Cowboys playing at home for the first time since they beat the Patriots there. But yeah, I mean, this is they've gotten a lot of help since they lost to the 49ers. I mean, actually the Niners haven't won a game since they beat the Cowboys. Neither have the Cardinals, for what it's worth. The Niners have lost 2 games. Eagles lost 1. Dallas obviously won a game in that stretch. So this is a chance. And we've written about this. We've talked about it. Actually, we talked about it in the past for the listeners on our roundtable. The next 4 weeks are critical for the Cowboys. Not that the games are terrifying, but because December has matchups against the Eagles and the Bills and the Dolphins, and the Seahawks, if you want to put them on that level. Dallas has to kind of stack some dubs here before Thanksgiving. They have the Rams this week. Then they're in Philly next week, as we've talked about. They get the Giants at home, and then they're at Carolina the Sunday before Thanksgiving. They got to win 3 of those. They got to get to Thanksgiving at 7-3, and that starts on Sunday.
I've had the Rams at number 16 in my power rankings at various points in the season, but like seemingly often, or always like floating right around there, because I don't know what to do with them. And I said that before the Eagles played them. Like, I don't know what to fully make of this team, because they've done some impressive things this year. Obviously, I think they're kind of living off of the week 1 win a bit, but still, I mean, like, they have talented players. Like Puka Nacua is unguardable. He's been amazing. He's like he's gonna get his, and Cooper Kupp is still there. Rams offensive line isn't great. That kind of worries me against this Cowboys defensive front. I like the Rams to cover in this game, but I think the Cowboys will win it. I think it's going to be a close, competitive game. I think the Rams can do enough where Aaron Donald can cause some issues for that Cowboys offensive line, but I don't. And I think Matthew Stafford has played pretty well this year on the whole, even though his numbers don't really totally match up with that. Weird team, just a weird team. So I think they're going to make it competitive, but I just can't give them the full benefit of the doubt to say where they're going to pull off the upset and win.
It's a big line. It's a big number.
Big line.
But I'm willing to lay it.
Wow.
With the Cowboys. And that's because I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt that they fixed some of their offensive issues over the bye. That there's an assumption there, but I think it's a fair assumption, because I would give that benefit to like most NFL teams. You know what I mean? Like, you have a week to kind of self-assess, self-scout, figure things out, and hopefully make some strides on the offensive side of the ball. If that happens, I am comfortable saying that they cover. But either way, I do think they win. I think the thing I'm least confident in is just covering, because again, it is 6 points is a lot. Okay, are we ready to move on to get out of here? Blow this joint. We have to do songs, obviously, but I mean.
Okay, so if everything goes like we said, we should say, what will the NFC East look like after?
The Eagles will be 7-1.
7-1.
Dallas will be
5-2,
5-2, and
Commanders
then
3-5, and then the Giants 2-6. So
right, yeah, and that will
that Giants win over.
That will set up a first place game for Dallas next week. Obviously, Philly would be in first place, but if Dallas, the short of it is, if Dallas wins their next 2, they're in first place in the division.
Right, so they have the tiebreaker head to head. But yeah, that Giants win really was a blessing for you and me because it just took the Commanders out of it pretty much, and also ruined the Giants' draft positioning a little bit. So shout out to the Giants.
That has the I want to say this before we do songs. So for the purposes of what I'm about to say, let's assume the Phillies win Game 7.
Big assumption.
So that has the potential to set up next weekend to be like an all-time bad sports weekend for the Phillies.
Why?
I mean, for Philadelphia fans, because like if the World Series were to go 7 games or 6 games even, and the Phillies were to lose the World Series to the Rangers, and then the Eagles were to relinquish first place to the Cowboys. Now, relinquishing first place in the middle of a season is hardly the same thing as losing the World Series, but like
still having the same record, yeah.
Right, but it would be like a weekend that would be remembered forever. You know what I'm saying? In like a really horrible way. So
also, it could go the other way.
It could.
That is also possible.
Look at that optimistic spin from you. Okay, let's do some songs and then get out of here. Rachel obviously always gets her song submitted early. Hers is "Bad Boy for Life" by Diddy.
I need to listen to that one because if I know it, I don't know it off the top of my head. I probably heard it.
Just listen to the NFC's mixtape playlist, and that's how you can listen to it.
What's your song?
Ready for mine? My song is actually, I always think of The Office when I hear the song, because do you remember in The Office when Michael fakes having Bruce Springsteen tickets and he's gonna like auction them or give them or whatever it was, and then he doesn't have them, whatever. So when he goes up to the stage at the auction, before he like pretends like, oh, where'd they go? Everybody see him, whatever, blah, blah. He goes up to the stage to a song. And when I first saw that episode, I thought the song in question was Bruce Springsteen. It wasn't until a few watches later that I realized that's not a Bruce Springsteen song that is happening in the back. I think I've tweeted about this before. I'm just like recycling life content at this point. That song is "The Heart of Rock and Roll" by Huey Lewis and the News. So my point is, like, how could the Office creators and producers, who were and remain inordinately talented, how could you give a non-Bruce Springsteen song in that moment? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's a weird thing to do.
Maybe they couldn't afford the rights or get the rights to it.
But why have any song if it can't be Bruce Springsteen, when the whole moment is about, you know, the boss? Like, why have any other thing? That's silly. Hey, Brandon, come to my pizza joint. I have great pizza here. Here's a burger. You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, that's, you know, it's silly.
I don't know.
But my song,
so that's your song,
is "The Heart of Rock and Roll" by Huey Lewis and the News.
Okay, interesting pick. Wait, what inspired that again? Just because you saw it?
I mean, I like the song a lot. And the song shouts out San Antonio, which is a city near and dear to my heart. And I'm wearing my Spurs t-shirt today. But I mean, I think of that story or that episode all the time when I hear this song. But it's a great song.
I don't want to repeat artists, and especially from the same album on the playlist yet, because I think we need to change it up. So,
you're saying, I thought you meant like artists like Huey Lewis and the News or Diddy. Like, I thought you meant like today. You're saying an artist or album that's currently represented on the playlist.
I don't want to, because I picked Blink-182 a couple weeks ago. Their album just came out, from which that song I previously recommended is on, and I think it's a great album, and everyone should listen to it. So, honorable mention. And Turpentine is my favorite song from that album. Really cool. But that honorable mention aside, I'm going to go in a totally different direction, and I'm just going to go with a song that I like and I've been listening to. And it's funny, like, you know, when songs are old, because they're only like a year or two or whatever old, but like they're old in that like they were popular, but now they're not as popular anymore because a little bit of time has passed. So it's not like, you know, a hot song maybe at the moment, but I'm going to go with "Massive" by Drake.
Okay, that's a good choice.
I like that song.
Good job. Yeah, Drake's
October's
first appearance.
Very own.
Wow, it's not the last time you could have gotten him in. But it is for the listeners, because next week's episode goes out on November 1st.
I mean, I'm still gonna do a Halloween one probably next week. So
no, but still, like, because of that, especially, this was your last time to do it.
Right.
Wow, October's very own Drake. You, me, happy belated birthday to you, Brandon. I hope it was wonderful. Last week was a good one. The Astros got their last win of the season on my birthday. So I got to enjoy that before it all fell apart.
Sure.
Wow. Last thing, have you seen, and I'm saying this to you in advance in case the Phillies do win, have you seen the Creed thing that the Rangers have going on?
I have.
So again, this annoys me because my team lost to them. But so they have all the Creed stuff going on, and then Kirk Cousins.
Take me higher.
So Kirk Cousins saw this, and Kirk has made Creed references before, which you know. But he saw this at some point, I guess, recently, and asked for, I don't know, Creed music to be played somewhere. And so the fact that they had this big win right when the Rangers clinched a World Series berth, like Monday night was a big night for Creed. I'm glad that none of us, picked a Creed song because it would upset me. But
I'll do that eventually.
Wow.
But not because of that. Just
can you name another Creed song besides Higher?
Yeah, used to like Creed a lot. Like they were a big deal. Like when they, like, I think there's a little bit of a revisionist history on Creed, as in like they always sucked like all the time, and everyone always hated. That's not true. People started to hate them a lot, and it became very in vogue to hate on them. But in the moment, like they're on the radio, like and people liked it, and there were songs that people liked.
Similar. It's a Nickelback sort of effect. Like right. people act like Nickelback didn't. They have some great songs. We can say
especially
that.
Like their older stuff. I think they have some like their older albums are really good. I think they fell off. I do agree, and I think people say that a lot about a lot of bands. But I think especially with them that did become true. But some of their older albums, I think there's some like good songs, especially the deep cuts too. Not just the hits are good, but I think they have some old good deep cuts.
Yeah. Wow. What a weird episode.
Creed songs. Weathered. With Arms Wide Open.
There are some bands though, like Savage Garden. Like people can only say like Truly, Madly, Deeply, and the other one. Those are the only Savage Garden songs that anybody knows.
I don't even know what that is.
You would know the song. I'm not gonna sing it, but you would know the song.
Okay. Yeah, Garden. I mean, there's it's one of those deals. Yeah, where I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it, but I can't.
All right. As we
say
leave,
it off the top of my head.
As we leave, Brandon, we would like you to say something nice about Kirk Cousins' primetime performance against the San Francisco 49ers.
I can gladly do that. It helped the Eagles become the only one loss team in the NFC.